Welcome to Homer's Honeybee. We're doing a hive inspection video today to kind of show you, after you've pulled your honey off, kind of what we're looking for in the hive to decide how much we need to feed it, if any, during the fall for fall feeding, and to assess where the brood is and to get a mite treatment in. This is something that's really important to do, and also kind of be aware of your front entrance. We pulled the entrance reducer out because we're going to put mite strips in. While those are in, we leave them out, and then we'll put them back in again afterwards. But it's important. We actually saw a couple of wasps trying to sneak in today since we pulled that out, so they're trying. So we're going to kind of crack the lid here, and first thing I want to do is get a little smoke in the air out around the hive, down by the entrance. Pop the lid, give them a little smoke inside, let it set for just a second. You want your smoker lit with enough fuel so it doesn't run out on you while you're doing this hive inspection. So, pull the lid off. Get it a little bit out of the way. Actually, I'm going to do this. You want to move smooth, slow and smoothly so that you don't disturb them any more than you have to. And then we're going to kind of take a look here and see what we got. We just want to start on the outside edges. This will be mostly honey out here, but that's the queen won't be out on the. She'll be in the middle if she's up in the top of this or not. So kind of pull it out slow. So we've got a nice crown of honey up here around the top, but they've got some open space in the bottom. There's no eggs in that right now, so she's just kind of slowed down on the outside edges in laying. But there's this brood crown that you're kind of seeing bulging up in the bottom. Set this down here out of the way. Yeah, we got some brood on this frame. Just check for the queen, but we've got eggs and looks like at least larvae. I haven't looked deep enough for eggs, but there's eggs and brood, or brood and larvae. And I think there's some eggs probably there too. Same thing on this side. So, but they're pretty far up here. You'll notice in the top up here, they've got some honey they're back filling in. And so this is what the bees do is the nectar comes in as you feed them. As this brood hatches, they'll start filling these top cells up and push the brood nest down. So this is pretty high up in the box, and so we need to feed this hive at least a couple gallons to get them down, get some weight back on this hive for them to get to the winter, and keep everything going. So that's kind of what I'm looking for as I get in here. I've looked for the evidence of the queens functioning, the eggs and larvae. Brood looks healthy, the larva looks healthy. So we're pretty good disease-wise, and so I really don't need to spend a lot more time digging clear through this thing. But if you don't see all that as you know at first, then keep going till you do. I find it interesting that so many people will look in their hives to do an inspection, and they're just looking at the bees on the top. They're not looking down inside the hive. So. Important to do to kind of know what's going on. Now we're going to actually pull this top box off and look down in the bottom and kind of show you what's going on down there. You'll see there'll be a lot of space down there, maybe a little bit of brood being raised, but it'll probably be, because it's so high up in the second box, it'll probably be fairly empty down there. So give them a little puff here again, keep them settled down. A little bit of smoke again. Get them settled down. You can pull the very first frame, but it's been easier to get the second frame out since it's not so close to the sidewall. I've got a little bit more room to work with, and it's usually, sometimes it'll have a little brood on it, but most of the time it's more honey than brood, like we saw in the top box. So as you can see here, we're in the second frame. Looking at the first frame, there's not much on it at all. We like to see a couple frames of honey on the outside edges on both boxes. So those outside frames should be mostly honey. And then as we get into the center where the brood is, like on these frames up above here, they should be crowned with, there should be a crown of honey across the top. So they've got food for eating. During the winter, it's really hard for the bees to go to the sides or to the bottom of the hive to feed. They have to be eating what's above them. So now we've had brood down here. You can see they've got what's left there, but it's pretty much hatched out, and she hasn't done any laying down here again. Again, a little bit of pollen up here at the top. If you want them to move, you can gently blow on them. Gently, don't bluster at them, but gently. And they'll move for you. So as you can see, there's not much going on in this bottom box at all. It's mostly in the top box, and we need to get them fed at least 2 gallons, maybe 3, to get them get the hive weight where we want it for the winter time. So they've got enough food to survive the winter. Propolized in there pretty good. There we go. All the brood she's laying is up in the top right now. So we want to help her go down into this lower box. This is pretty typical, and why it's important to kind of know what's going on in the hive and where the position of the brood nest is. The brood nest is kind of this basketball size area inside the hive, and right now it's up in the top box, and rarely, if at all, into the bottom box, because she's not laid down here, at least recently, because of her slowing down for the season. Again, so I don't need to go look at every frame, but I'm seeing pretty much, once I get to the middle, that's what it's going to be on the other side pretty much as well, most of the time. So we don't have enough honey in this hive for the winter, so we've got to feed them really strongly. And what the idea is, we want to feed a 2-to-1 syrup, a heavy syrup, 2 parts sugar to 1 part water. And then we want to do that so that they can cure it into honey quicker. They can get that water content down to where it needs to be for them to be able to, whoops, getting a little bit of hot stuff coming out. Let's see, we want to we're going to put in these new mite treatments in here. This is the Mite Away Quick Strips, which I should be wearing gloves. Got a pair here. So the Mite Away Quick Strips or the Formic Pro come in these these gel pads that have some paper wrapped around them that is a wick that lets the acid out in a proper dosage over a period of time instead of all at once. Do not ever, you want to of course get this foil wrapper off, but you're never going to want to take this paper off of the gel, because that's what controls how fast the acid dissipates into the hive. Comes in 2 pads like this. We're going to lay one all the way to this end on that side and all the way to this side, but about 1 inch or so in the middle. Right in the middle of the brood nest is where we're trying to put this. Square up our top on there. And we were going to pull this one frame out again. Just going to show you. This is kind of what we want the middle to look like, where we've got a good crown of honey across the top. and the brood nest would be down here, so that they have that food to work up into during the winter time. That heat rises is from their cluster, so it's easy for them to move up into the hive to eat. It's really hard for them to go to the sides or to the bottom where it's colder. So that's what it should look like, that crown of honey across the top. Kind of put these on a little kitty corner so you can kind of slide it on. Clean it up a little. And then put your top back on. Look for spider nests. And then we're good. Now we want to keep the front entrance open all the way. For the one of the requirements for this product is that the temperature for the next 4 days ought to be at least 85 or less. After that, it can go up to 93 and it's still okay. But the first 4 days, it needs to be down below 85, which we've got in the forecast for the next 5 days. We're down, in fact, 7 days or so. I think we're down in that range. You also, if you have a screen bottom board, which we have on this, you need to close off the bottom board during this treatment, so that it regulates how we want some ventilation, but not too much. My front entrance should be open all the way across, and at least a half to 3/4 of an inch tall. So some solid bottom boards have a 3/8 inch entrance, and so that's too small. If it is, you need to crack the ends, raise it up, shove a stick or something in there to raise it up enough so that you have proper ventilation across the front of the hive. Now the bees won't like this smell in there, and so they're going to try to move it around. They're going to fan. That's what we want. It helps to have the vapors penetrate the cluster in the inside, and also all the cells, so that it does its job in clinging up the mites. Just quickly reviewing, what we're trying to do here is verify that we have a queen right hive, kind of evaluate where the brood was, how much honey is in there, whether we need to feed or not, which in this hive we need to. And the last thing we want to look at doing is, of course, getting a mite treatment in if we need to. You may have already done that earlier in your hive. And then once this treatment over, so this treatment is a max strips, or the Mite Away quick strips. It's a 7-day treatment. So in 7 days I'll come back out, I'll put the entrance reducer back in, and I'll feed it. I can start feeding it again. While this formic acid product is in the hive, you cannot feed your hive. So you want to abstain from feeding during this time where while we have this in. After the 7 or 14 day treatment period, whatever one you're using, you can then at that time put the entrance reducer back in, open the bottom if you'd like to, and go from there. So anyway, that's kind of what we need to do. I hope you all kind of learned a little bit from this. It's important to know what's going on in your hive. Don't just look at the top and see that you've got bees. You need to know what's happening down in the hive. So happy beekeeping.